Every cowboy knows the deal: 8 seconds for glory or a lifetime of pain. In bull riding, some wrecks don't just break bones, they end careers. These are 10 moments when the ride didn't just end the night, it ended everything. 10. J.B. Mauney vs. Arctic Assassin. J.B. Mauney, one of the most successful bull riders in history with more than $7.3 million in career earnings, saw it all come to an end in 2023. During the Lewiston Roundup in Idaho, Mauney nodded his head, the gate burst open, and within seconds, Arctic Assassin launched him hard. The violent whip snapped his neck in 2 places, breaking his C4 and C5 vertebrae. Surgery came next, but not even Mauney's toughness could overcome a broken spine. The injury forced him into retirement, marking the end of an era. Speaking after his career-ending wreck, Mauney said, "I rode the best bull I ever had, and he won." Mauney's fall was devastating, but the next wreck didn't just end a career, it changed a life forever.
That is a no score. That bull.
9. Jerome Davis vs. Knock 'em Out John. Jerome Davis probably looked forward to many more rides than he ultimately got, but his career ended in Fort Worth in 1998 after a horrifying collision with a bull named Knock 'em Out John. During the Tough Headman Championship Challenge, Davis was thrown forward, colliding headfirst with the bull's horn. The impact fractured his neck and severed spinal connections, leaving him paralyzed from the chest down. He never rode in competition again, but today, as coach of the Carolina Cowboys, he continues to shape the sport from his wheelchair and advocates for protective gear that wasn't standard back then. Not all riders are forced out by one catastrophic crash. Some, like Brendan Clark, feel their bodies hitting the limit and make the hard call to step away before it's too late. 8. Brendan Clark's cumulative chest wreck. Australian professional bull rider Brendan Clark most likely envisaged having a lengthy career. He loved the sport, but after 11 brutal years, his body hit its breaking point. At the peak of his career, Clark went head-on with a 2,000-pound bull named Black Smoke, which will be considered the straw that broke the camel's back. After riding this bull, he left the bull ring with a lacerated liver, bruised lung, and multiple broken ribs from the bull slamming his chest. These injuries were quite significant, but were just a part of over 100 injuries. Due to how battered his body was, he had to retire at 28 to avoid organ failure. Speaking of his time as a bull rider, Clark said, "I loved it, but my body said no more." Clark now trains young riders in Texas. Hopefully they can avoid the mistakes he made. The next couple of retirements are all linked to Bodacious.
Smoke nearly gets out from underneath it.
7. Tough Headman vs. Bodacious, 1995. Iconic rider and 3-time world champion Headman faced the world's most dangerous bull. A headbutt from this bull left him with a broken face in multiple places. In 1995, at the PBR World Finals in Las Vegas, Nevada, Headman faced Bodacious. During the ride, Bodacious violently bucked, and Headman held on briefly before the bull's signature head-snapping move slammed into his face. The impact shattered multiple facial bones, including his nose, jaw, and cheekbones, requiring extensive reconstructive surgery with plates and screws. The injury sidelined Headman from competitive riding for an extended period, effectively ending his full-time career at its peak. He later transitioned to broadcasting and bull breeding, and though he made some comeback attempts, this wreck was one he couldn't totally recover from. Just like Headman, 1995 wasn't the best of years for this next Bodacious victim.
Sometimes it's good. You just got, we know that.
6. Scott Bredding vs. Bodacious. Bredding, a consistent PRCA contender, drew the infamous Bodacious at a PBR event. Bodacious flung him into the air, resulting in a shattered jaw and severe facial lacerations that required extensive wiring and plates. In 1995, during round 9 of the National Finals Rodeo NFR in Las Vegas, Nevada, Bredding, a 5-time NFR qualifier from Edgar, Montana, drew the infamous bull Bodacious, the 1994-95 PRCA Bucking Bull of the Year. Aware of Bodacious's recent brutal wreck on Tough Headman just weeks earlier, Bredding donned a hockey mask for facial protection before climbing into the chute. The ride lasted less than 4 seconds. Bodacious unleashed his signature explosive buck, whipping Bredding forward onto his massive front end and slamming him with a headbutt that knocked him unconscious. This move fractured his left eye socket and cheekbone, broke his nose, and burst his orbital sockets. He was rushed to University Medical Center for emergency treatment, but was released later that night and attended the rest of the the NFR as a spectator, unable to compete further. Breeding returned for more NFR runs in 1996 to 97 and 1999, but battled ongoing shoulder issues requiring surgery in 1998, ultimately retiring in 2001 at age 37 to prioritize his health. He never fully recovered from the hit by Bodacious. Interestingly, he went on to say, "It brought the best out of me." Bredding knew he couldn't attempt another ride on Bodacious, but not every bull rider thinks this way. Some do not mind going head-to-head with Bodacious over and over.
Look out! Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's down. Heads up, boys, he's safe. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, he is...
5. Terry Don West versus Bodacious. In 1994, at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in Houston, Texas, Terry Don West, a two-time PRCA World Champion, 1992 and 1997, and Bull Riders Only, BRO World Champion, 1993, faced Bodacious for his second attempt. West had successfully ridden Bodacious once before in 1991 at a PRCA event. This made him one of only 8 qualified 8-second rides in the Bull's 135 professional outs. This time, Bodacious unleashed mid-buck. He dropped his front end sharply, pitching West forward, then whipped his massive head backward into West's chest and side with devastating force. The impact fractured West's collarbone, broke 3 ribs, and punctured a lung, leaving him in life-threatening condition with internal bleeding and requiring emergency hospitalization. This blow was severe, and West described it as one that shoved his jawbones back into his ears. Nonetheless, he recovered enough to return to competition. West drew Bodacious again in early 1995 at the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. He held on for a qualified 8-second ride, scoring 87 points and earning $10,000. This feat cemented his reputation as one of only 4 cowboys to cover Bodacious twice professionally. Although this was quite an achievement, the 1994 wreck, however, compounded West's cumulative trauma from a 20-year career marked by multiple concussions, broken bones, and surgeries, ultimately leading to his retirement. West later reflected on Bodacious. He is very capable of killing a man, but credited the Bull with elevating the sport's visibility and his own legacy, including induction into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. Not every bull rider that retired after a wreck had to face Bodacious. Even bulls that don't exactly have dangerous reputations can end the careers of legendary bull riders.
Way in the world to predict what can or will happen. Right here. That's the whack.
4. Paulo Crimber. In his last season as a bull rider, Paulo Crimber suffered a severe wreck after riding a bull called Roughneck. Crimber was participating at the PBR Built Ford Tough Series event in Orlando, Florida. He was probably looking forward to other PBR events. Little did he know that he was having his last ride. During this ride, he got bucked off by the bull. This wasn't unexpected, but something unfortunate happened. The bull fell on him, causing a re-break of his C1 vertebra, which had been previously injured. He also broke his collarbone. The impact and resulting injuries were huge. He needed extensive medical intervention. Additionally, he couldn't continue with the competition. Crimmer retired from professional bull riding and shortly after this wreck. The severity of the neck injury, combined with the cumulative toll of prior injuries, made continuing in the sport a wrong move. Crimmer knew things could go wrong if he continued riding bulls professionally. However, this next rider had to wait for a failed rehabilitation before deciding to retire.
So much try in him, and that's dedication, love of the sport to come back and try that hard.
3. Mike Lee's retirement from the PBR after failed rehab attempts. Mike Lee, the 2004 PBR World Champion and one of the most consistent bull riders in professional bull riders' PBR history, announced his retirement from the organization in November 2017 at age 34, primarily due to the cumulative toll of injuries and failed rehabilitation efforts that left him unable to maintain his elite level performance. He was a trailblazer, the first to win both the PBR World Championship and World Finals event in the same year, and a 16-time consecutive World Finals qualifier, 2002 to 2017. His career spanned 16 years of near uninterrupted competition until the injuries arrived. Lee was an early advocate for helmets, crediting his for saving his life after a 2003 wreck at a PRCA rodeo in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Bucked off chili, he collided headfirst with the bull's horn, fracturing his skull and requiring emergency brain surgery. He returned after 4 months, but the incident left lingering vision loss in one eye. By 2017, Lee was battling a blend of chronic pain, shoulder instability, instability, knee weakness, and post-concussion symptoms that made gripping the bull rope and absorbing 2,000-pound impacts difficult. He tried rehab but didn't get the results he wanted, so he had to get off the scene.
Identity crisis has not affected him though. Uh-oh, guys.
Oh boy.
Oh my Lord.
2. Austin Meyer. On August 14th, 2015, Meyer abruptly retired from the PBR and bull riding entirely, just 5 years after nearly claiming the world title. He cited the many aches and pains as the breaking point. "I've always known there's more to life than riding bulls, and I wanted to make sure I could enjoy time with my family." Although Austin had to deal with lots of injuries, a near-fatal head stomp was probably the worst he faced. At a PBR Challenger Series event in Pueblo, Colorado, the bull Homer Simpson bucked him off and stepped directly on his head. Meyer escaped with a concussion and facial fractures, but no permanent damage. He partly had his helmet to thank. Furthermore, repeated awkward dismounts and arena slams led to progressive herniated discs and spinal instability in his lower back. By 2013, after his Iron Cowboy win at AT&T Stadium, pain became constant. He endured metal from feet to face across his body from prior fixes, but the back was the silent killer, getting worse with every ride. 1. Chris Shivers' retirement from bull riding. Chris Shivers was known for his explosive style and relentless comebacks. He embodied bull riding's never back down ethic, but after 14 years of dodging horns and absorbing arena slams that could pass for weekly car wrecks, the sport's toll caught up, forcing his retirement at age 34 in 2012. His exit wasn't tied to a single wreck, but rather a cascade of head and body traumas that turned grit into a gamble he could no longer afford. Although his last ride didn't end up in a massive wreck, it wasn't a pleasing sight and was proof of the fact that his body couldn't deal with pain anymore. Even if he had no prior plans to retire, he would have actually had to retire at this point. These wrecks prove one thing: the bull riding doesn't forgive and it never forgets. But as long as there are cowboys, someone will keep nodding for 8 seconds of glory.